So after a long wait, tons of drama, and a little bit of uncertainty whether Drop would even deliver these switches, they are finally here. These are the Holy Pandas. Before we take a look at these Holy Pandas, I do want to address the history behind these switches. The mechanical keyboard community has seen its fair share of hype and drama, and even by those standards, the situation around these Holy Pandas is quite unique, and that's putting it lightly. I'm not going to go over all the details in this video, but if that's something that interests you, I'll link some articles down below on how these switches came to be and some of the conflicts that came up while they were being brought to the market. Alright, with that out of the way, let's take a look at the switches. These are drop-made Holy Pandas, and they're actually a combination of two different switches. The tactile stem used on the Halo Clear and True switches, along with the 67-gram springs and stable housings from the Enver Pandas. Individually, they're alright, nothing too spectacular, but together they produce a very special typing experience. The first thing that sticks out to me is that the Holy Panda keys feel a lot lighter thanks to the 67-gram springs taken from the Panda switch. If we overlay Hatta's force graph of the Panda over the Halo Clears, we can clearly see that actuation point and bottom out forces are lower. With an actuation point of 43 grams, the Holy Pandas are closer to the force of the more familiar Cherry MX Brown's 37 than the Clear's 52. Same story with bottoming out. The Holy Pandas bottom at 63, sitting between the Brown's 55 and the Clear's 78. Force similarities aside, the Holy Panda and the Brown switches couldn't be more different, and the Holy Pandas are in a completely different league. They are way better. Now, if you compare them to the Holy Clears, that's a completely different story. The first thing you'll notice when typing on the Holy Panda is that the switch's tactile feedback feels very similar to the Clears, but with some very clear distinctions. When pressing down on the Halo Clear's heavier spring, you feel the buildup as you press, with a quick transition into a pleasant and defined bump. However, once the bump is cleared, you immediately feel the increased spring pressure, which is designed to discourage users from bottoming out. But I find that this gets tiring after a while. With the Holy Panda, you do feel a very similar buildup, but it transitions much more smoothly into a subtle, well-rounded, and longer duration bump with a lighter follow-through, and sounds very pleasant when bottoming out. These are the defining features of the Holy Panda, and it feels great. Speaking of housings, these are obviously not transparent, so if you're in it for the RGB, do realize that the LED outputs will suffer significantly. For me though, personally, this might sound a little weird, but I do buy LED and RGB lit keyboards, but I usually keep them off, so it doesn't really bother me at all. To put the switches through its paces, I brought my Mass Drop keyboard with the Holy Pandas to work for a week, where I navigate through countless terminals and text editors all day, and found that with a lighter spring, cleaner bump, and reduced wobble was a winning combination, and I prefer these over the Halo Clears and MX Browns by a long shot. So there was one thing that concerned me a lot on Drop's page for these switches. A handful of users were reporting that the switches came pre-lubed from the factory with very incredibly inconsistent results, and unfortunately I can confirm that this is true. After opening a few housings, I found that these switches were either lubed too little or too much on the notch slider, or both. Now, I can't help but feel like this is a huge miss when you consider who these switches are targeted to. For the enthusiasts that do want to lube their switches with something like 3203 or 3204 and countless other options on the market, will now have to go in and clean everything out, then apply the lube that they want to. And for the people that aren't even interested in lubing in the first place, runs the risk of having inconsistent switches right out of the box, which is a huge shame. I think the better, safer play would have been just to go no lube directly from the factory. Now, with that out of the way, it's time for a sound test. I'm gonna break this up into two different portions. I'm gonna start with the individual switches first, then go into another test with them mounted on my Mass Drop Alt keyboard with stock PPTs, along with some GMK ABS keycaps as well. So let's get into it. All right, let's wrap it up. I like these switches a lot, and they've taken the top spot for now. I picked up the Holy Panda competitors, the Zelo V2s, so we're gonna have to wait and see how long the Pandas stay on top. If I had to grab about anything, it would definitely be about the loop issue that I mentioned earlier. And for some reason, the housing colors differ from switch to switch. I'm not sure why that is, it's a little strange, but it's just a minor annoyance because it gets covered up by the keycaps anyways. Other than that, they feel great, and I'm actually really happy that Drop was able to deliver these at a much lower price. If you didn't know, before Drop's involvement, these switches were going around for an average of $4 to $5 per switch, and that is crazy. That would mean that for me to fill out an alt keyboard, it would cost me $335, which is insane. I personally would have never purchased at that price, but at Drop's price of a much more reasonable $1.07 for a total of, I think it's around $72 to complete the set, that is much better. So the question becomes, is the hype warranted? Definitely not at $4 per switch, but at closer to $1, I think it is. These switches provide an extremely unique experience that I have never felt before, and I feel like it has a very wide mass appeal. The switch isn't too crazy in any particular direction. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. The tactile feel is just right, and I can see it doing extremely well if Drop decides to continue producing them. And if they do, I would highly recommend them. Now, on the off chance that they don't bring them back, you could always pick up some Halo Clears or True Switches, along with some Trash Pandas from Novel Keys to make your own set. For the ones that also picked up these Holy Pandas from Drop, what do you guys think of it? Do you think it was worth the hype? Let me know in the comment section below. And that's it for today. Like, subscribe, it really helps me out, and I'll see you guys next time. Picked up these switches from Mass Drop also. Same Mass Drop.